Captain James Reed stood straight and tall in the center of the Galactic Council chambers, his weathered face showing no emotion as laughter echoed around him. The massive room, with its towering crystal walls that stretched up into darkness, held representatives from over 300 alien species. Right now, all of them were laughing at humanity's latest presentation. "You expect us to believe," wheezed High Speaker Martin of the Luminars, his glowing form rippling with amusement, "that your species, barely able to handle four-dimensional travel, has somehow mastered the seventh dimension." His translator turned his musical language into plain words, but couldn't hide the mockery in his tone. Reed's grip tightened on the small device in his hand, a holographic projector containing all the proof they needed. The room's white lights reflected off his simple blue uniform, the only human military outfit among the elaborate robes and biosuits of the alien council members. "The Pathfinder project isn't just theory," Reed said, his voice calm and clear. "We've successfully tested." More laughter cut him off. A delegate from the Silicon-based Life Federation actually cracked one of their crystal appendages from shaking too hard with laughter. The High Speaker raised one glowing tendril for silence. "Captain Reed, let us be practical. Your species has been part of the galactic community for merely 50 years. The Luminars have studied dimensional science for 50,000 years. We mastered the fourth dimension 10,000 years before your people invented the wheel." Reed activated the projector. Above his palm, a complex diagram appeared, showing nested spheres of light that twisted in impossible ways. "With all due respect, High Speaker, sometimes fresh eyes see what others have missed. Our scientists have discovered." "Enough." A new voice spoke. From the highest tier of the chamber, Ambassador Stone of the Eternal Collective leaned forward, his massive form, wrapped in robes that seemed to be made of living darkness, dominated the space around him. "We have humored Earth's enthusiasm many times before. Your last attempt at dimensional travel resulted in the loss of 3 ships and 30 lives." Reed felt his jaw tighten. Those losses still haunted him. Good people who had believed in the project, but they had learned from those failures. "That was 2 years ago, Ambassador. We've made breakthroughs since then." Yes, the High Speaker waved a glowing tendril dismissively. "You humans always claim breakthroughs, always believe you can bypass millions of years of scientific progress with one lucky discovery. It would be admirable if it wasn't so dangerous." In the back of the chamber, Reed noticed movement. Lower-ranking delegates were already leaving, considering the matter settled. His time was running out. "The Pathfinder doesn't try to break through dimensional barriers," Reed said, raising his voice slightly. "It works with them. Our research shows the dimensions aren't stacked like layers. They're woven together. We don't need to force our way through. We just need to understand the pattern." This brought a new wave of laughter, softer but more condescending. The High Speaker's glow dimmed slightly, showing what passed for pity among his kind. "Captain," he said gently, as if speaking to a child, "your species' imagination is remarkable. But the laws of physics don't change just because humans think differently. The energy requirements alone for seventh-dimensional travel would tear your planet apart. We've done the calculations over millennia." Reed switched off the projector. They weren't ready to listen. Not yet, but they would be. "Thank you for your time, Council members. Earth's delegation will submit our full findings for review." As he turned to leave, the ambassador's deep voice rumbled one last time. "Let us hope these findings are more substantial than your last presentation on quantum consciousness integration. Another theoretical fantasy that failed basic testing." Reed kept walking, his footsteps echoing in the vast chamber. He didn't react to the continuing chuckles and whispered comments. They could laugh. Soon, they would understand that humanity's greatest weakness, their barely developed dimensional awareness, was actually their greatest strength. The Pathfinder worked precisely because humans couldn't see dimensional barriers the way other species did. As the chamber doors closed behind him, Reed touched the small communicator on his wrist. Dr. Wells. They reacted exactly as you predicted. Proceed with Test Protocol 7. The answer came back instantly. Understood, Captain. Pathfinder is ready. Let's show them what theoretical fantasies can do. Reed smiled for the first time that day. The galaxy was about to learn that sometimes the best jokes are the ones where the audience doesn't realize they're part of the punchline. Dr. Anna Wells stared at the holographic display floating in the center of Earth's quantum research facility, her eyes reflecting the soft blue light of dancing particles. The underground lab, buried 2 miles beneath the Rocky Mountains, hummed with energy as the latest test reached its final stage. Running Simulation 57. Her assistant Mark called out from his station. The young scientist's fingers flew across the control panel, adjusting variables that had stumped alien researchers for millennia. Quantum field is stable. Gravitational waves are. Wait, something's different this time. Anna stepped closer to the display. The simulation showed 2 particles, seemingly ordinary at first glance. But these weren't normal particles. They were quantum entangled across dimensional barriers, something the aliens had always said was impossible. Look at the gravity readings, she said, pointing to a small number in the corner of the display. It's not fighting us anymore. It's flowing. The other scientists in the room moved closer, their faces lit by the glow of their own screens. For years, they had worked in this hidden facility, away from the judging eyes of alien observers. Today, something was finally changing. Previous attempts by other species always focused on forcing their way through dimensional barriers, Anna explained, more for the record than her team. They built bigger engines, used more power, tried to tear holes in reality itself. But we took a different approach. Mark nodded, still adjusting controls. They never considered that consciousness itself might be the key. The display changed, showing a new pattern that looked like a dance of light and shadow. It was beautiful in its simplicity, particles moving between dimensions not through force, but through understanding. Human brains already process 11 dimensions without us realizing it. Anna continued. We just never knew how to access that ability. The aliens' own studies proved it, but they saw it as a limitation. They thought we were stuck in a primitive state of dimensional awareness. Suddenly, alarms began to flash. Not warning alarms, success indicators. The particle simulation had jumped to a new level, showing movement that should have been impossible. Doctor. Mark's voice was excited now. The test particle. It's achieving 7th dimensional rotation without any energy input. Anna quickly moved to the main control station. Show me the consciousness integration readings. The numbers that appeared on screen confirmed what she had suspected for months. Human consciousness wasn't just compatible with higher dimensions, it was naturally attuned to them. While other species had evolved to see dimensional barriers as solid walls, human minds still remembered how to slip between them. Send the data to the Pathfinder team, she ordered, already reaching for her communicator. Captain Reed needs to see this before. A new alarm cut her off. This one was different. A proximity warning. On the main screen, a ship appeared in orbit above Earth. Its design was unmistakable. A Luminar observation vessel. They're scanning us, Mark reported, his excitement replaced by concern. The quantum fluctuations must have caught their attention. Anna straightened up, a small smile forming on her lips. Let them scan. They won't understand what they're seeing. Their instruments are designed to detect forced dimensional breaches, not natural dimensional flow. She walked to the facility's main window, which looked out into a massive underground cavern. There, bathed in soft light, stood humanity's greatest achievement, a prototype vessel that looked more like a work of art than a spaceship. Its hull wasn't made of metal, but of crystallized thought patterns, grown rather than built. The Luminars think dimensional travel requires massive amounts of energy, she said quietly. They never considered that the real power might come from understanding rather than force. They've spent so long trying to break through walls that they never noticed the doors. Her communicator beeped. A message from Captain Reed about the council meeting. She read it quickly, her smile growing wider. "They laughed at us today," she told her team. "That's good. The best discoveries often come when everyone else thinks you're wrong." She turned back to the control station. "Mark, begin power-up sequence for the Pathfinder. It's time to show the galaxy what humans can really do." In orbit above them, the Luminar ship continued its scans, its crew completely unaware that they were about to witness something that would change their understanding of the universe forever. The Earth Defense Council chamber was silent as first speaker Marcus stepped forward. Unlike other Luminar representatives, he had chosen a more human appearance, a tall figure wrapped in softly glowing robes that shifted between shades of blue and silver. His face, though human-like, seemed to be made of gentle light. "My friends," he began, his voice carrying none of the mockery that other aliens often used when addressing humans, "I come with grave concerns from the High Council." General Robert Parker, head of Earth's military forces, sat at the center of the human delegation. "About the Pathfinder project, I assume." "Yes." Marcus moved closer, his form casting strange shadows on the wooden conference table. "Our sensors detected quantum fluctuations from your research facility. Fluctuations that should be impossible with your level of technology." Dr. Wells, sitting next to Captain Reed, started to speak, but the general raised his hand slightly. "Not yet. Let them show their cards first." "We have been monitoring your experiments," Marcus continued. "The Council believes you are moving too quickly, pushing into realms you don't understand. The seventh dimension is not merely another layer of space-time to be conquered." "Then what is it?" Dr. Wells asked, her voice calm but firm. Marcus turned to her, his luminous features showing what might have been concern. "It is a boundary, a barrier put in place for the protection of all species." He waved his hand, and a hologram appeared above the table. The image showed ruins, massive structures that seemed to bend and twist in impossible ways. Parts of the buildings appeared and disappeared as if they couldn't quite exist in normal space. "These are the remains of the Ascendant," Marcus said quietly, "a civilization that existed 1,000,000 years before the Luminars. They were the first to breach the seventh dimension. They were also the last." Captain Reed leaned forward. "What happened to them?" "They vanished." Marcus's glow dimmed slightly. "Their entire civilization, thousands of worlds, trillions of beings, disappeared in a single moment. They left behind only these ruins, structures that defy our understanding of physics, structures that sometimes move when no one is watching." General Parker's expression remained neutral. "And you believe our experiments risked the same fate?" "We believe," Marcus said carefully, "that some boundaries exist for a reason. The Council has made its decision. Earth must cease all dimensional research beyond the fourth dimension, or face complete isolation from galactic trade routes." The humans exchanged glances. Isolation would cripple Earth's economy, set their development back by decades. "How long do we have to comply?" the general asked. 24 hours. Marcus's form flickered slightly. "I argued for more time, but the Council fears your progress. They believe humans are too unpredictable to be trusted with such research." Dr. Wells stood up slowly. "First speaker, you've worked with humans longer than most. You've studied our history. What do you think happens when someone tells humans they can't do something? When they're ordered to stop asking questions?" Marcus's glow pulsed once, betraying his discomfort. "Dr. Wells, this is not about limiting human potential. It is about preventing a catastrophe. The Ascendant were far more advanced than humanity, and even they could not control what they found." "Maybe," Captain Reed said quietly, "they were too advanced. Maybe they were looking for the wrong things." "You don't understand." Marcus's voice took on an edge of frustration. "The ruins they left behind, they're not dead. Our scientists have detected patterns in them, like thoughts moving through a vast, incomprehensible mind. The Ascendant didn't just vanish. They found something in the seventh dimension, something that changed them." The general stood, signaling the end of the meeting. "Thank you for the warning, first speaker." Earth will consider the Council's demands. As Marcus turned to leave, his form already beginning to fade, he paused. There is something else, something the Council doesn't know. He looked back at the humans. The ruins, they've been more active lately. Ever since your experiments began, almost as if they're waking up. After he vanished, the chamber remained silent for a long moment. Finally, Captain Reed spoke. Well, that explains why they're really scared. It's not about what we might find in the seventh dimension. Dr. Wells nodded. It's about what might find us. The general looked at each of them in turn. The Pathfinder test is scheduled for tomorrow. Opinion. We proceed, Dr. Wells said firmly. The Ascendant weren't destroyed. They evolved. And now their ruins are responding to us. I don't think that's a warning, sir. I think it's an invitation. Commander Tom Stone sat in the Pathfinder's control chair, his hands hovering over panels that seemed to glow from within. The ship's bridge wasn't like anything ever built before. No metal walls, no traditional controls, just flowing surfaces that responded to thought as much as touch. Final systems check complete, his co-pilot Jack announced from the secondary station. All quantum barriers are stable. Consciousness integration at 98%. Through the ship's unique viewing panels, Tom could see the massive underground hangar beginning to open above them. They had exactly 3 hours before the Luminar's deadline, and direct orders from Earth Command to stand down. Orders they were about to disobey. Dr. Wells's voice came through the ship's comm system. Remember, Commander, this isn't like any test flight you've done before. Don't try to force the dimensional shift. Let your mind guide the ship naturally. Copy that, Tom replied, feeling the familiar pre-flight tension. But this was different. The ship felt alive somehow, almost eager. Beginning power-up sequence. The Pathfinder systems came online one by one, not with the usual mechanical hum, but with something closer to a musical note. The crystalline hull began to pulse with soft light, matching the rhythm of the crew's heartbeats. Consciousness sync confirmed, Jack reported. The ship, it's reading our brainwave patterns perfectly. Tom nodded, remembering Dr. Wells's briefing. The Pathfinder wasn't just a ship, it was an extension of human consciousness, designed to work with their natural ability to perceive higher dimensions. No alien race had ever built anything like it, because they'd never considered it possible. Launch in 30 seconds, the control room announced. Weather conditions optimal. No Luminar ships detected in immediate space. Tom closed his eyes for a moment, feeling the ship's systems through the neural interface. It was like having an extra sense, a way of seeing that went beyond normal vision. Ready for vertical launch. Jack, start the countdown. 10, 9, 8. The hangar doors above were fully open now, revealing a slice of night sky scattered with stars. 7, 6, 5. Emergency klaxons began to sound. Earth Command had detected their launch preparation. 4, 3. Multiple communications incoming, Jack reported. They're ordering us to abort. 2, 1. Tom opened his eyes. Launch. The Pathfinder rose from its cradle, but there was no roar of engines, no burst of flame. Instead, the air around the ship seemed to bend and fold, creating patterns that hurt the eyes if you looked at them too long. Passing through atmosphere, Jack called out. No resistance detected. The dimensional field it's working perfectly. They cleared Earth's atmosphere in seconds, the ship moving with impossible grace. Traditional radar couldn't track them. To normal sensors, the Pathfinder barely existed. Beginning Phase 2, Tom announced, feeling the ship's readiness through the neural link. Preparing for dimensional shift. This was the moment of truth. Every alien race had said this was impossible without massive energy expenditure. But as Tom let his mind merge more deeply with the ship's systems, he felt something the aliens had never understood. The dimensions weren't separate layers to be broken through, but aspects of the same space, like facets of a jewel. Sir, Jack's voice was filled with wonder. The ship, It's not just breaking through dimensions. It's dancing between them. Tom saw it too. Through the viewing panels, space itself seemed to unfold like the pages of a book. He could see multiple versions of the same stars, overlapping and shifting. But instead of being confusing, it felt natural, like remembering something long forgotten. All readings are stable, Dr. Wells reported from Earth. You're actually doing it. You're accessing dimensional spaces that should require the energy of a sun to reach, and you're doing it with less power than a small city uses. Tom smiled as the ship moved effortlessly through spaces that no human vessel had ever reached. That's because we're not forcing our way through. We're just remembering the way home. Suddenly, alarms began to sound. Jack's hands flew over his controls. Multiple ships detected. It's a Luminar battle fleet. They must have been waiting in stealth mode. They're charging weapons, the tactical system reported. Tom's smile didn't fade. Good. Let them try to stop us. They're about to learn that humanity hasn't been playing catch-up all these years. We've been blazing a whole new trail. The Pathfinder's hull brightened as it prepared to show the galaxy exactly what humanity could do when they stopped trying to copy alien methods and started trusting their own unique way of seeing the universe. The Luminar battle fleet hung in space like a constellation of deadly stars, their ships' crystalline hulls reflecting Earth's distant sunlight. Aboard the Pathfinder, Commander Tom Stone watched as more ships emerged from stealth mode, completing the circle around them. 37 vessels detected, Jack reported, his voice tense. All weapons locked on us. They're transmitting a message. The bridge's communication system activated, and high-speaker Martin's voice filled the air. Human vessel, power down immediately. This is your only warning. We cannot allow this dimensional experiment to continue. Tom shared a quick look with Jack. Through the Pathfinder's neural link, both men could feel something strange happening, not in normal space, but in the higher dimensions they'd accessed. Dr. Wells, Tom called through the secure channel to Earth. Are you seeing this? Yes, her voice came back, filled with excitement despite the crisis. The seventh dimension. It's responding to your presence. There are patterns forming that we've never seen before. The high speaker's voice came again, harder now. You have 10 seconds to comply. We will not allow another Ascendant incident. Tom's hands moved across the control panels, but he wasn't preparing to surrender. Jack, activate the full dimensional field. Let's show them what they're really afraid of. The Pathfinder's crystalline hull began to pulse with deeper light, and the space around them started to change. Through the viewing panels, they could see reality itself folding open like a flower, revealing layers that the alien sensors couldn't even detect. Sir, Jack's eyes were wide. Something's out there. In the higher dimensions. It's watching us. He was right. As the Pathfinder shifted deeper into dimensional space, they became aware of presences, vast, ancient consciousnesses that had been waiting. The aliens hadn't been entirely wrong about the dangers, but they'd misunderstood their nature. 5 seconds, the high speaker warned. Dr. Wells's voice cut through the tension. Commander, the patterns we're seeing, they're not random. They're language. The Ascendants didn't vanish. They evolved. They became beings of pure consciousness. And they left. Guardians. As if responding to her words, new shapes appeared around the Pathfinder. They were impossible to describe in normal terms, patterns of light and thought that existed in multiple dimensions at once. The guardians of the higher dimensions, left behind by the Ascendants. Luminar fleet charging weapons, Jack reported. But Tom wasn't worried anymore. Through the ship's neural link, he could feel the Guardians' interest. They were reaching out, not to harm, but to test. They had been waiting for a species that could perceive them naturally. Sir, the Luminars are firing. Beams of energy lanced out from the alien ships, but something extraordinary happened. As the weapons fire approached the Pathfinder, it simply ceased to exist in normal space, redirected into dimensions the Luminars couldn't access. Impossible. The high speaker's voice shook. Our sensors. The weapons aren't even reaching your ship. That's because you're fighting in the wrong dimensions, Tom replied calmly. Your weapons only work in the spaces you can perceive, but we're not limited to those spaces anymore. Through the neural link, Tom and Jack received a message, not in words, but in pure understanding. The Guardians had been placed here eons ago, waiting for a species that could bridge the gap between physical reality and higher dimensional existence. Dr. Wells, Tom called out, you need to tell Earth Command something. The Ascendants didn't leave these Guardians to prevent other species from reaching the seventh dimension. They left them to find a species worthy of their legacy. And they think that's us? Jack asked in wonder. Tom nodded as the Guardians' presence grew stronger, their patterns interweaving with the Pathfinder systems, like old friends recognizing each other. They're not Guardians against intrusion. They're Guardians of knowledge, waiting for students who could understand it. And humanity just passed their first test. The Luminar fleet's weapons had fallen silent. Through the viewing panels, Tom could see their ships hanging motionless in space, their sensors desperately trying to understand what they were witnessing. Sir, Jack said quietly, what do we do now? Tom smiled as the Guardians began sharing their first lessons, teaching humanity how to see the universe as it truly was. Now we show the galaxy that the real power of the seventh dimension isn't about weapons or control. It's about understanding. And it's time for everyone to understand a whole lot more. Dr. Anna Wells stood in Earth's quantum research facility, staring at data streams that poured across multiple screens. The information coming from the Pathfinder and the Dimensional Guardians was overwhelming, but within it, she could see patterns emerging, patterns that changed everything they thought they knew about humanity. Captain Reed, she called through the emergency communication channel. Are you seeing this? Hard to miss it. Reed's voice came back, tense with excitement. The whole solar system is lighting up with dimensional energy. The Luminar fleet is backing away. They've never seen anything like this. On her main screen, Anna watched as new readings appeared. The Guardians weren't just communicating with the Pathfinder now. They were reaching out to Earth itself, and Earth was responding. It's not just this ship, she whispered, understanding finally dawning. It's us. It's always been us. Her fingers flew across the control panel, bringing up historical data. Mark, pull up every unexplained gravitational anomaly recorded around Earth in the last 1,000 years. Her assistant quickly compiled the data, and a new pattern emerged on the screens. Earth's gravity had never behaved quite the way it should. Scientists had created countless theories to explain the tiny discrepancies, but now Anna saw the truth. Earth doesn't just exist in 3 dimensions, she announced, her voice carrying to all stations. Part of our planet, a significant part, exists in the 7th dimension. That's why humans can perceive higher dimensions so naturally. We've been living in them our entire existence. Through the facility's windows, she could see strange lights beginning to dance in the massive cavern. The air itself seemed to be folding, revealing glimpses of spaces that had always been there but had remained hidden from human perception. Commander Stone, she called to the Pathfinder, adjust your dimensional sensors to frequency 7.3. Tell me what you see. After a moment, Tom's voice came back, filled with awe. It's beautiful. Earth isn't just touching the 7th dimension, it's anchored there, like a tree with roots spreading through different layers of soil. The Ascendants didn't choose us randomly, Anna explained, the pieces finally fitting together. They chose Earth as a cradle for a species that could naturally exist across dimensional boundaries. They didn't just disappear, they helped shape our evolution. Mark called out from his station. Doctor, the Luminar fleet is transmitting. They're demanding to know what's happening. Put them through, Anna said, her excitement building. They need to understand. The high speaker's voice filled the facility, no longer confident but uncertain. What have you done? Our sensors show impossible readings from your planet. We haven't done anything, Anna replied calmly. We've simply discovered what was always true. Humans aren't primitive in our dimensional awareness. We're fundamentally different. We don't need massive engines or power sources to breach dimensional barriers because we already exist across them. Through the Pathfinder's feed, she could see the guardian entities moving closer to Earth, their presence causing ripples across multiple dimensions. They weren't just watching anymore. They were welcoming their students home. That's why human consciousness could interface so perfectly with the Pathfinder, she continued. The ship isn't forcing its way through dimensions. It's using the same natural connections that every human has. We just had to learn to see them. Captain Reed's voice came through again. The Guardians are sharing more data. They're showing us Earth's history. Our planet has been part of the seventh dimension since before life began. The Ascendants didn't alter us. They found us. We're what they were looking for. A species born to bridge the gap between physical and higher dimensional existence. Anna watched as more lights began to dance through the facility. The air shimmered with possibilities as human minds everywhere began to awaken to their true nature. They weren't forcing their way into higher dimensions. They were finally opening their eyes to where they had always been. "Tell the Luminar fleet to stay back," she ordered. "Not because it's dangerous, but because they're about to witness something unprecedented. Humanity isn't ascending to the seventh dimension." She smiled as the truth became clear. We're finally coming home to it. Around the planet, millions of humans were beginning to sense something different in the air, in their minds, in reality itself. The dimensional barriers that other species struggled so hard to breach had always been permeable to human consciousness. They just needed the right key to unlock their awareness. And now, that key had been found. The Galactic Council chambers were silent now. No one was laughing anymore. Through the massive crystal walls, representatives from hundreds of species watched as the Pathfinder hung in space before them, its hull shimmering with dimensional energies that their most advanced sensors could barely detect. Captain James Reed stood once again in the center of the chamber, but this time he wasn't alone. Dr. Anna Wells and Commander Tom Stone stood with him, along with something else, a guardian entity that existed in multiple dimensions at once, its presence making the air itself seem to ripple and fold. 3 days ago, Reed began, his voice carrying easily through the hushed chamber. "You laughed at humanity's claims about dimensional travel. Today, we're not here to prove you wrong. We're here to share what we've learned." The High Speaker's glowing form pulsed with conflicting emotions. "Your ship, your entire planet, everything we thought we knew about dimensional physics, was based on trying to force your way through barriers that never needed to be broken." Anna completed his thought. "The dimensions aren't separate spaces to be conquered. They're aspects of the same reality, meant to be experienced together." Tom stepped forward, gesturing to the Guardian floating beside them. The Ascendants didn't vanish because they made a mistake. They evolved, and they left these Guardians not to prevent others from following, but to guide those who were ready. Through the chamber's windows, more Guardian entities could be seen appearing in space around the station. They moved in patterns that hurt the eyes to watch, existing in spaces that most species couldn't even perceive. "What you're seeing," Anna explained, "is only a fraction of their true presence. But humans can see more because we've always existed partially in higher dimensions. Earth itself is anchored in the seventh dimension. It's part of what makes us unique." The ambassador of the Eternal Collective leaned forward, his dark robes seeming to absorb light. "And now you've come to claim superiority, to lord this power over us." Reed smiled and shook his head. "No, we've come to build a bridge." He activated a small device in his hand, and suddenly the chamber was filled with shifting patterns of light and energy. "The Guardians didn't choose humanity because we were special. They chose us because we can help others see what we see naturally." Around the chamber, gasps of surprise and wonder arose as representatives began to experience something new, a faint but clear sense of the higher dimensions that had always surrounded them. The Pathfinder wasn't just a ship, it was a key, unlocking awareness that had been dormant in all species. Your civilizations mastered physical sciences, Anna said, walking among the amazed delegates. You built incredible technologies, mapped the galaxy, achieved things humanity can still only dream of. But you always saw dimensions as barriers to be overcome. We saw them as paths to be walked. The guardian entity moved to the center of the chamber, its presence now clear to all. Through the Pathfinder's technology and humanity's natural dimensional awareness, it could finally communicate directly with the gathered species. The Ascendants didn't want us to keep this gift to ourselves, Tom explained. They wanted us to help bridge the gap, to show other species that higher dimensional awareness isn't about power or technology. It's about perception, understanding, and growth. The High Speaker moved closer, his glow reflecting the dimensional energies now visible to all. All this time, we thought we were protecting the galaxy by stopping dimensional experiments, but we were actually preventing our own evolution. It's not too late, Reed said, looking around the chamber. Humanity is still learning, still growing in our understanding. But we'd like to learn alongside you, not separate from you. The seventh dimension isn't a boundary to be feared. It's a frontier to be explored together. The chamber erupted in voices, not in mockery this time, but in excitement, wonder, and hope. Species that had competed for millennia now found themselves united in a new understanding of reality itself. As the Pathfinder's energy connected with the guardian entities, creating a stable bridge between dimensional awareness, Reed thought back to that first day of laughter in this chamber. The joke had been on everyone, it seemed. Humanity hadn't needed to prove their worth to the galaxy. They'd needed to help the galaxy remember its own potential. The age of separation was ending. The age of unified dimensional awareness was just beginning. And somewhere, in dimensions beyond normal perception, the Ascendants watched as their plan unfolded exactly as they had hoped, not with conquest or competition, but with understanding and unity. The laughter had stopped. The real work could now begin.